Hello you lovely lot, my name is Max, welcome back to my YouTube channel and another Nottingham Forest match preview where today we are discussing our upcoming away game on Saturday against Wolves, a team currently managerless and sitting in the relegation zone. An absolute must-win game at this stage of the season. If you're new around here, the format of these videos goes as following. We start with an initial discussion talking about our opposition in a little bit of detail, giving some context to their season thus far. We then follow that up by dissecting the stats and the key players, followed by some tactics and analysis, and then my scoreline for the match, my predictions of how I think the game's going to go. So if you enjoy this kind of stuff, don't forget to drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss a single match preview or some of the other content I got planned for the channel in the next few weeks. And check out my TikTok whilst you're down there. With that being said, let's start talking about Wolves and their team. So as we usually do, let's start by giving some context to Wolves and their season thus far. And it's not been a good start to the campaign, currently sat in 18th position in the Premier League without a win in their last 3 games and currently without a manager at the time of recording. It's been heavily rumoured that Nuno might be coming back to the club, but at the time of recording, Bruno Lage is out and they currently have no head coach. And really, there's been big problems for the club over the last couple of seasons. When they were initially promoted back to the Premier League a few seasons back, they had back-to-back 7th place finishes, doing really well, qualifying for the Europa League, going deep into that competition. But since then have finished 13th and 10th respectively in the last couple of seasons, with Nuno going on obviously to Tottenham, Bruno Lage coming in, him never really being able to implement his style of play. There were flashes of brilliance where they were more expansive, more creative, but they always went back to type, going back to a defensive 3 at the back system, and it's really sort of disenfranchised their fans, and generally Wolves are a really boring side to watch at the moment. And this is despite them making some really interesting signings in the summer. Nathan Collins coming in from relegated Burnley, and he looks like a really exciting defensive prospect who obviously of course already has a year of Premier League football under his belt. And Matthias Nunes, who looks like a really good midfield prospect, a really good long-term solution to the João Moutinho problem, a really good progressive ball-carrying central midfielder who does enough defensively to chip in and who could really offer something to this team long-term. But for every Nunes and Collins, there's Kalajdzic, who came in during the summer, looked really promising, had really good numbers at Stuttgart for a few years, was somebody who Forest were looking at one point, but unfortunately got injured and ruptured his ACL in his first match, and his season's already over. And Diego Costa as well, a player who, yes, is very experienced at Premier League level, a title winner 2 times with Chelsea, but unfortunately isn't really at the peak of his powers. He's 34 years old and hasn't scored more than 5 league goals since leaving the Premier League in 2017. Really, their squad isn't awful. It's not a bad team. There's some really good individual talent. And I think if they were to bring in a progressive coach, someone like Julian Lopetegui, who obviously isn't going to be taking charge of the club anymore, would be a really good option to get the most out of their talent and play attacking football where they're going to get the most out of the likes of Pedro Neto, Kalajdzic when he comes back, Matthias Nunes and Ruben Neves. With that being said though, let's start talking about the stats and dissect what's really going wrong for this Wolves team and what actually is going quite well, because they're not an awful team on paper, and when you deep dive into their stats, there's some really good things to look at. Now, this is probably the most obvious thing, that Wolves are not a good attacking team. They do not create enough chances. They do not score enough goals. They've scored the fewest goals in the Premier League at the time of recording with just 3 and have generated the second least expected goals in the Premier League at the time of recording and are actually quite significantly underperforming their XG. They're actually about 50% of what their XG would be suggesting. And this is all considering the fact they actually generate a decent amount of chances. They're about mid-table for shots per 90 minutes, but these are shots of low quality from a far distance to goal, and their shot on target percentage is also very low, meaning they don't get a lot of shots on target for what they actually get. Now, the obvious solution to this would be getting someone into the team who can score goals. Raul Jimenez historically has been that player, but over the course of the last season and a half, they've been very reliant on the likes of Daniel Podence, Pedro Neto, Gonzalo Guedes this season, who are good creative wingers, really good ball carriers, but aren't really goal scorers naturally. In fact, Podence is their top goal scorer this season. In fact, one of only 2 players to actually scored in the Premier League for Wolves this season. And as I mentioned in that little bit before, they do actually generate a decent amount of chances, but these of course are chances that are not of high quality, as their XG would suggest. They are from a further distance from goal than any other team really in the Premier League, and their shots are also low volume in terms of shot on target percentage. They might take a lot of shots, but these are usually speculative efforts that might go wide or go over or get blocked. Despite their issues up front, they actually have a really solid defensive unit for them to build on, much like Aston Villa last week. They have the 4th best defensive record on goals conceded over the course of this season and the 9th best record on expected goals. Whilst they do concede a lot of shots, it's kind of the flip side to their shot issues in their attacking side. The shots that they concede are from a really far distance to goal, and also the shot on target percentages that they concede is very low, meaning they reduce their opposition to those sorts of speculative efforts from distance, which of course, once in a blue moon, they're going to go in the back of the net, or if you're Forest, almost every time they shoot from distance. But generally you're confining teams to wide and deep areas where they're not really going to affect you too much, like a Tottenham or a West Ham. They do this very well. So because that section went really long, I'm just going to briefly talk about some of the players that I've been really excited by from Wolves this season. Collins and Kilman in defence, 2 really exciting defensive prospects. Kilman, I think, around 25, really should be going to England with the World Cup. He's had a fantastic season thus far. And young Nathan Collins, of course, I mentioned earlier, came from Burnley, has really good Premier League experience already, and looks like a really promising left-sided centre-back. Of course, Matheus Nunes, their big signing from the summer, has actually started pretty well, really good ball-carrying central midfielder, and their attacking talent isn't awful when utilised properly. Pedro Neto, Gonzalo Guedes, they could cause us some problems if we let them. So overall, as is pretty predictable, Wolves are a side with a really good defence that's going to be really hard for us to break down, and there may be sustained periods of possession where we're in and around their box, but they lack the goal-scoring facilities to really outrun most of the teams in the Premier League. And unless that changes in the January window, or they get some players back firing and fit over the course of the season, we could find ourselves with Wolves potentially being relegated by the end of the season, which would be very surprising with a team with the individual qualities that they have in it. So with that being said, let's start talking about Wolves' tactics in a little bit of detail. Now, of course, they are currently without a head coach, so we're going to be quickly breezing over the fundamentals of how Wolves have played over the last couple of seasons, because there has been a great deal of continuity from Nuno to Bruno Lage. And of course, we'll be talking about what Forest need to be doing to mitigate this, and what's been going well for us in the last couple of weeks in our improved performances. So in yellow on the board, we have Wolverhampton Wanderers, and they're a team who are capable of playing both 3 and 4 at the back. When they came up to the Premier League, of course, they used this sort of 3-4-3, 5-2-3 kind of formation that we, of course, sort of associate Wolves with. Under Bruno Lage, they did try and transition more to a 4 at the back system with a defensive midfielder, pushing the midfielders up a little bit more and looking to be a lot more expansive and progressive at times. But generally, they fell back to type and going for that 3 at the back system. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is how they line up whoever is taking charge of the team on the day against Forest. Generally, they're a team that look to sit back deep and compact, looking to absorb pressure from their opposition, win the ball back, and then transition upfield. A striker like Raul Jimenez is really good at holding up play and facilitating their forwards. They have wingers who are very quick and very direct, who look to carry the ball upfield, very good ball carrying threats. And of course, their wing backs are a big part of their game. At times under Nuno and under Bruno Lage, they've actually played conventional wingers as wing-backs, players like Adama Traore, who are really good ball carriers, maybe don't have the final product to really impact in the final third, but are players who are really, really good ball carriers, very direct and very good at getting the ball upfield. And that is really important for the way Wolves play, attacking with width and pace and looking to be as direct as possible. Ideally as well, their striker is the kind of player who can drop between the lines, someone who can lead the line, finish off chances. They do like a really good, well-rounded forward. And at his best, that's what Raul Jimenez was, but since that head injury, hasn't really been able to get that form back together. Costa could be like that potentially, but again, he's so old that you don't really know what you're going to get from him. And Kalinic would have been perfect for that. He's a really good holding up, facilitating forward. And I think had he been fit for this whole season, Wolves would have been a much different team going forward, and I think it would have really thrived. And then, of course, they have their central midfielders, which for the most of this season has been 2 from Moutinho, Neves and Nunes, players who are really good screening options, can do the defensive work, but also get forward and help progress play. Neves a really good deep-lying playmaker. Moutinho, decent for box-to-box, but also a really good deep-lying progressive passer. And Nunes, much more of a box-to-box option, who's going to look to carry the ball into the final third, where he can then help impact and obviously hopefully create chances. So what the Forest need to do in order to mitigate this and get the best kind of result out of this match, which would hopefully be a win away from home, our first one of the season. The first one is to be as compact as possible against this Wolves team. We were really good against Aston Villa, getting men behind the ball, compacting the space and forcing them into wide areas where, of course, Aston Villa are particularly poor. Wolves are a lot stronger, but Aston Villa very poor from those wide areas where often we would see either Ashley Young or Matty Cash isolated. And we need to keep doing this against Wolves. As a team as well, we need to be pushing that back line back, forcing them to play between the lines and just generally preventing them from causing us too many issues. This is going to be especially important in and around the box. Ruben Neves is a huge threat from distance, whether that's free kicks or just general long shots. He's a player who's a big threat from those positions. With how many long shots, long goals Forest have been conceding in recent weeks, one against Villa, I think it's been one in the last 6 or 7 games. Obviously did have conceded a couple against Leicester City as well. We need to be sure to compact the space in and around the box like we did against Aston Villa and really prevent them from getting too many opportunities for Neves to get a couple of minutes in front of goal to have a shot and get a goal. This of course goes both ways though. We need to be as engaging in the final third as we were against Aston Villa, looking to press up against that back line and prevent them from building out from the back when they get the opportunity to. Generally they're a pretty direct team, but there will be moments in the game where they may be recycling possession to work a better angle for an opportunity, and that's where the likes of Gibbs White, Brennan, Awoniyi, Dennis, whoever's playing in that front line needs to be really engaging, looking for those high turnovers. We were really good against Aston Villa at doing this, and we need to continue this and be more aggressive and proactive in the final third in terms of pressing and engaging the opposition. And in general in this game, Wolves are a team who obviously are more known for camping back and then counter-attacking on their opposition. In this match, they may lead to us having sustained periods of possession in and around the box in these sorts of areas of the pitch. And I actually think this would be a really good opportunity for us to rest Brennan Johnson. He's been pretty lacklustre in the last few games, very quiet against Aston Villa, and I think in a match where we're going to have the ball into feet quite a lot rather than running in behind, which is more Johnson's kind of game, I think it would really suit us having maybe a front line of Dennis, Awoniyi and Morgan Gibbs-White, whether that's in a front three like this or in a 2 and then a 1 in front of them. Whatever that ends up looking like as a front line, we need to probably have players who are more comfortable on the ball creating chances rather than stretching teams and running in behind. And I think that's a front line maybe that suits this, potentially an opportunity to get Lingard back in, a pretty incisive passer who will also work really hard off the ball, or you would hope would work hard off the ball. In general, that's probably how I'd like the front line to look, and I think still keeping the 3 at the back in this game would probably be advantageous against a Wolves team who will also be playing 3 at the back, going man for man in some areas of the pitch. So in terms of the scoreline for this match, I'm going to go for a 1-0 win for Forest, a much needed win away from home, our first one of the campaign, and it would be a great time to do it against a team who we could overtake if we beat them in the Premier League, a team without a manager, without a win in their last 3 games, let alone a point, and of course who can't really score a goal to save their life at the moment. It's a really good opportunity to get some more points on the board and push towards Premier League safety this season. Of course though, let me know your predictions for the scoreline in the comments section down below, and whilst you're down there, don't forget to drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the match previews, and check out my TikTok whilst you're down there. And with that being said, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, Reds. Enjoy the game if you're going. I will catch you later.